Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking this time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Set Up to Fail. Set up to fail. And some of you all, you know exactly what that means, because some folks may have even said to you that, you know what, you didn't even have a chance growing up, did you? You were set up to fail. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about this as it relates to children, because we are keeping with these audios for a while related to children. When you are feeling down and out about your child, and God is speaking to you about any number of issues, or maybe he's not, other people are, you have to know that there is something that needs to be done. We can't just keep complaining. We cannot keep sitting back, seeing the writing on the wall and not doing anything about it. God will tell us at times that it's time for you to step up to the plate. You've been sitting back a little too long, a little too lax with your child. Okay? The enemy is trying to set your child up to fail. And this is how he's doing it. And so you start seeing some things. You start seeing, okay, spending a little too much time goofing off in the classroom. Okay? Let's start off with the small children before we lead up to the sons and daughters who are adults. Okay? So goofing off in the class, that's a clear sign something is going on. Okay? Then, of course, you know, there is what the teachers will share with you about a child. That's a clear indication something's up. Okay? Enemy setting your child up to fail. Grades were good, but now they're starting to decline. Then, of course, you know, you being attentive to everyone and everything else, you know, adding too much to your schedule. Now you're getting too busy to know what's going on with your child. Once again, now that's a good way of setting your child up to fail, because now you're not as proactive. Okay? Dropping your child off here, there, and everywhere. That's a clear indication that somebody else is going to be influencing your child. That person may be toxic. That person may not have their life together. That person may be teaching your child some things that you don't want that person to teach, setting your child up to fail. Okay? So then your child is getting older now, and you're starting to see some things in your child's personality that you don't like. And you're saying to yourself, I didn't raise my child to be like this. So you're distancing yourself from all of the things that you could have been a part of, things that you could have kept your child away from, things that you could have been doing for your child, but because of money, because of your own personal interests, your selfish desires, because maybe your partner was selfish, you know, any number of things, you know, you're distancing yourself from what you could have been doing, and you're just saying, I don't understand what happened. Okay. So child is a teenager, they're rebelling, okay, setting your child up to fail, right? Their influence is primarily their peers. If their peers are toxic, the enemy will use the peers to get the child to try all sorts of things, from sex to drugs to music that you would never listen to. But hey, you know, it's harmless, right? Everything is harmless. But it isn't. It is harmful. And so, interesting, harmful, creating a fool. Because now you're starting to see some stuff that's really angering you concerning a child who is going to soon be a young adult. And you're trying to teach this teenager who thinks that they know more than you. You're trying to tell this person that, listen, you can't walk around here and not do anything. You cannot play your games all day when there are responsibilities that need to be tended to. You are going to have to do more than what you have been accustomed to doing. You know, you're trying to train the child to do any number of things. And you may be forceful with it, or you may be a little lax with it, or you may be somewhat, you know, moderate about it. However you're trying to teach the child the right thing. But I will tell you from personal experience that being forceful, being like a, sergeant in the military, that doesn't work for some of us. It just doesn't. Some folks, they're scared of their parents, so they tend to do pretty well. But for some of us, no, it just doesn't. Okay. And then for some parents, they never get out of it. So here I am, an adult, got my own children, and yet you still have those parents who feel like they can still be demanding, still be controlling, still be forceful, and, we're going to have a quality relationship. Oh, no, You get to a place where you say, no, that's not me. And then you try not to mimic that sort of behavior with your own children, because you want a relationship with your children, even if your own parents or grandparents or whoever raised you don't necessarily want a relationship with you anymore because, you gave them so much grief, so much heartache and everything else. I love God, though, because God gives us an opportunity to make wrongs right. So where I screwed up as a parent, I can always, come back at some point and say, you know what, I messed up. Let me do right by you. Let me help you out. Okay, let me be a grandparent to, my grandchildren, or great grandchildren. But there are some that are so prideful and they have the enemy at, them that no, they're not going to do that. So the child was already set up to fail by all of these different influences and a lack of parenting or being too harsh or what have you. And now what is that child going to do? They're going to end up putting a lot of that stuff on their own children if they are not self-aware. Okay? And so the cycle continues. Now their child is set up to fail. And the enemy sits back and he's just enjoying all of it. There comes a point where you've got to look at your life and look at the patterns and look at what is going on with your child and say, enough is enough. I'm not going to keep going through this. I've got to do something different, because if I don't do something different, my child is going to fail. I've got to be proactive. How can I do these things? Please, Lord, give me some wisdom. Order my steps. Show me what I need to do. And the Lord says, well, first, I need for you to come up out of pocket. I can't do that. See, right away. Right? Some folks right away, they're turned off. I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying for that. And what if she's not going to stick this out? And what if he's going to do this, that, and the other? You don't know, because you haven't even started off, doing what I want you to do. How do you know? The Lord speaks to our subconscious mind. And we're sitting up there saying, well, you got a point, or conscious mind, or both. So some parents who will listen and obey will go ahead and they will put their children on the right path, because God is with them every step of the way and they have accepted God. Some parents, though, you're going to continue to struggle because, you believe that you are God and you don't believe in God or Satan. So that's your first problem. You're listening to spiritual things. You know that God is very much a prevalent, entity, if you will, a spirit. You know that we're to worship him in spirit and in truth. And if you're not interested in those sorts of things, how are you going to get the kind of wisdom that is going to usher your child along? Well, some will just rely on the Christian to help their children out, since they can't or don't want to. And that's fine too. However, God can come into play, and so be it. If that means that your child is going to have a better life than you, then so be it. You do what you can. But the enemy is setting children up to fail, even as I sit here and speak. He's doing it through the drugs and the alcohol and through the sex and through these toxic relatives and, things that parents did not clean up while they were alive. Things that parents are still not interested in doing anything about. He's setting children up to fail. But why? Why would he go after children? Because children are susceptible. Because children are not, knowledgeable enough. They're not strong enough spiritually. That's why. Children have their share of innocence. Now, once you become an adult son or daughter, you have gone through so much. By that point, the enemy pretty much has you right where he wants you. So if you're not a child of light, the opposite of light is darkness. You're a child of darkness. Some folks don't want to face that fact. And so a child of darkness is raising a child of darkness, is recruiting children of darkness, okay, through his or her child of darkness, because that child of darkness is going to go around and they're going to do what? Spread the darkness from the parents and the grandparents or guardians. So now you got this little demonic being going around doing all sorts of stuff. Okay? Until someone casts the demonic out of the first and second and third generation, it is going to continue to spread like wildfire. It's like bugs hatching, eggs in a room. And before long, they multiply, and now they're in the carpet, they're in the clothes, they're in, people's beds and everything else. That is the same thing that takes place with children of darkness. One person tells the other person, folks start participating in all sorts of sin, and it just runs rampant. And before long, you got somebody that's standing before the masses who was once a child, spewing all of the demonic that he or she has been exposed to. This is how far it can go. It's not just inside the household or within the family. It goes off into our workplaces. It goes off into our communities. These folks are traveling with us by bus, by train, by car. These folks, we got to trust them transporting us from one point to the other. We got to trust these people building our homes, okay, controlling our finances. When you really think deeply about this, this is scary. And these are people who were set up from the start to fail. They may not fail financially. Okay, so what? They look like a huge success financially, but mentally they're messed up because their minds have been set up to do any type of thing to get what they want, not what the world needs or can better the world, but what can help their families. And the elitists have this down. Those that are in darkness, who are elitists, they have it down. They already know. But those who are walking blindly, they don't know. So they go and they walk into these traps and they get caught, and their money is being used. Their children are being used. They're being enslaved. All of this foolishness is going on, and nobody really sees anything until something major happens. Because as long as it's not affecting your household, you're not really too concerned about it. And if you're not doing the research about these sorts of things that folks are doing to kill, steal, and destroy, you're not in the know. You're walking around blind, ignorant. So people who are set up to fail, what are they going to do? They're going to set you up to fail. They're going to set you up to fail in your marriage, right? Remember now, children of darkness are also marriage counselors. Okay? Children of darkness are also educators. Children of darkness are lawyers, doctors, teachers, preachers. They're in every role of our society. So it shouldn't surprise you when your customer service is subpar with some folks. Because, well, hey, they were set up to fail when it comes to certain things, and now they want to ruin your day. Because you're coming in and they can see that you're a child of light. There's something different about you, and I don't really like you. I don't know why I don't like you, but there's just something about you, and so they will set you up to have a bad day. Favor their own, look out for their own, take care of their own, but you, who? Do I know you? What's your name, right? You got to have a name. You got to have a certain connection. You got to know the buzzwords. You got to know the code statement. You got to have a certain button. You got to do a certain sign. You got to be dressed a certain way. You are set up from the start to fail because you can't get into certain groups. So what do they do with failure? They make money with failure. That's what they do. Okay. The setup was already established from the point of birth. Now we got to make money off of failure. A lot of failed folks, or those that feel like they're failures, are on prescription medicine. Cha-ching. A lot of folks who have experienced the side effects of failure are drinking. Cha-ching. Smoking. They need to be entertained. Huge business. Any type of entertainment you need, want, desire, it's out there. From the darkest, most despicable, nasty stuff behind closed doors to things that is considered family friendly. But we're going to pay you, we're going to charge you an arm and a leg though to come see. You see? Failure is a big money maker. People who feel like failures are going to spend lots of money to feel like they're successes. I'm just going to go and see this person who I deem is a success. How much money do I have to pay in order to see this person who I deem to be a success? What am I willing to spend in order to get into certain circles? What can they do for me? How can I make my children be the best and the brightest stars? 'Cause we can't be failures. Our family has been built on success. You see? Even have certain cars that deem success that one must drive. There has to be a certain wardrobe, and your hair has to be pressed a certain way. And your makeup has to look like you're a success. And your shoes have to look like you are a success. Right? Success has a costume. Failure has its costume too. And if you have to fake it to make it, in some circles, they tell you better or else. But when you're set up to fail, it hurts because you didn't even see it coming. You didn't even see it coming when you signed off that loan that you thought one day you were going to be able to pay back. But somebody set you up to fail because now they're tacking on all sorts of interest, and then they're sending that loan to this collector and that collector, and then they're tacking on all their fees. And then they are telling you that you can't get certain jobs because of your debt, and you can't buy certain products because of your debt. You are set up to fail because we can't all be successes because there's not a lot of room at the top. And then they don't want you to be a business owner or an entrepreneur or what have you, because then you're going to be in competition with their businesses. Who are they? They are anybody who has vested interest in things where you might be a potential competitor. We can't let you show up. They set you up to fail by putting you on so many different drugs. The enemy sets you up to fail spiritually by tempting you to go into certain atmospheres and connect with certain people that are out to do what? His will, which is to kill, steal, and destroy. So when you got involved with the crazy woman and a part of you disappeared, off with her, you were heartbroken and what have you, you failed in some areas of your life. When you got hooked up with the man who emotionally and sexually and physically abused you, a part of you didn't live up to potential, set you up for failure in future relationships, future business opportunities. Some people never come back right mentally. And those that are in the know, those that know how to orchestrate all sorts of things to get people, in a certain state of mind, they're going to do that. We're going to set you up to fail concerning this particular job because we want you to work over here. We're going to set up different scenarios so that you are not going to be a success over here because we really want you over there. And people who don't think deeply on these sorts of things, they end up being led away by their noses on some bonus money. They end up moving off into some locations because it was ingrained in them from the time they were children. And parents who do not protect children and who do not do research and who are not in the know about what the agenda is end up encouraging their children to go into the slaughter. The teacher said, and so that's why I did it. The doctor said, so that's why I thought I should. You didn't bother to find out why they would be pushing that particular medicine. You didn't bother to find out why they wanted you to go over to that certain community so bad. You didn't think about why they wanted you to be in that particular program, or why your children, they wanted them to take this medicine or be a part of this, organization. You never asked questions. Or why this man or this woman was taking so much interest in you and your family and why they were willing to pay you so much money. You didn't think what they were up to. You didn't bother to drop in and peek in on some folks. Well, I didn't think that it was, worth doing all of that because, I just trusted them. You did what? And so now the child was pimped. Everybody had their hands on that child. Everybody had a little bit of that child. Everybody did any number of things around that child. And now the parent cries, so far removed from his or her child, whether the child is young or whether the child is an adult. The room, as I'm speaking right now, turns so cold because the enemy, he doesn't like for his truth to come out. But I'm speaking his truth because that's what he does. He sets up people to fail. He sets up the Christian to fail. Especially if you are moving the masses, he is trying to set you up. So you might as well be prepared. Whether he's coming through that person that you love so much, or whether he's coming through some stranger that's going to come with a smile on his or her face and tell you all of these things he or she can do for you. And the Lord is saying, you tell him, thank you very much, but I'm not interested, because he is not going to send everybody to you with a smile on their faces. If anything, you are going to have to help somebody, and then God is going to move on your spirit to listen to him, and then he's going to give you a step-by-step plan on how to deal with that person. He's not going to throw you out there, ignorant to things. So that right away should give some of you a clue as to how the enemy is going to come into the picture to set you up to fail. There's going to be the false light that comes first before the genuine light. That's why so many women end up getting married to the wrong guy, because the wrong guy showed up as false light before the right one showed up. Moving too fast, that's a clear indication the enemy is at work. Telling you that he can do this, that, and the other for you, and don't worry about this and don't worry about that, and telling you to ignore what you know to be righteous and true and so forth, that's a clear indication that's a devil. Because one thing about it, God's people are not going to come in and tell you to go against the scriptures. That he is not going to move his folks to do. So you already know you are being set up to fail. Another thing is that he's not going to come into your life. The righteous one is not going to come into your life taking away your food, taking away your drink, taking away everything that are basic needs that God has given every single human. He's not going to take away your basic needs in order to get from point A to point B. Now, will there be some moments where he may move on you to do some things? Yes, but that comes later. It doesn't come, soon. It doesn't come quick either. Oh, well, we got to take away this from you. We got to take away that from you in order to get A, B, and C done. You will see that sort of thing happen with plenty of cults. Plenty of cults will tell you every itty bitty thing has to be removed before we even consider you for this position. Okay? No, it's a gradual process. When God is at work, he's going to gradually tell you that this isn't right. That's not right. You might want to take care of this. You might want to take care of that. This person's not right. You might want to, distance yourself. And it's a process. It's a slow process at times, but it is a process. But somebody who's expecting you to throw everything away all at once and so forth, and let's just start from scratch, and okay, wait a minute, why do we have to do all of this so quickly? You should be asking questions. And when they are discouraging you from asking questions, and when they want you to hurry up and sign, and no, I don't have any time, and we only have a limited amount of spaces and all this other stuff, walk away. Walk away. The enemy's going to keep using his same old tactics on some folks. So you might as well be prepared. He doesn't usually change his script very much. He might change characters. He might change the way he phrases some things, but the outline is pretty much the same. Okay? So be prepared for the same old. And if you need a reference book, well, go to the Bible, because the enemy has different tactics that he uses, but they pretty much are the same. Tactics, but the details are different. Okay? Tactics same, but details different. And there's different examples in the Bible. Focusing on temptation, scriptures, check stories related to how Satan operates. And you'll see that even to date, he uses the same tactics. You'll be amazed. I kid you not. But I don't want this message to be too long, so I'm not going to go through all of those things. But they are there in the Bible to help you, so that you are not set up to fail, so that your children are not set up to fail. But temptation is always prevalent first. Always. There's always some type of tempting thing that's too good to be true. Okay? So you're mindful of these things, and you're saying, I'm going to take some time out to pray. Well, don't take too long. Yeah, okay, whatever. And then you take too long. Learn how to say no. And when your child doesn't want to say no, sometimes you got to say no for your child. No, she wouldn't be interested in that. But no, just take this paper to her. I'll take the paper, but I'm telling you. So don't get your hopes up. And then lo and behold, if the enemy doesn't tempt your child to say something else. And that's when you're going to have to be in prayer. So I thank you as always for listening. And to God be the glory.